Good morning. Welcome to the Public Safety Committee. I'm Mitchell Englander, Chairman of the committee. I want to thank Councilmember O'Farrell for being here as well. While we don't have a quorum, it'll be communications from the chair until otherwise, unless we have a quorum. And with that, we'll go ahead and jump right into item 6. We have cards on 6, and we'll start off with cards. And if you can go ahead and read item 6 into the record.
Item number 6 is a motion from Councilmembers Rue and Bonin relative to the regulating the use of amplified sound on enclosed tour buses.
Okay, and before we start on that, since we already did open up, we have cards. Is there anybody here that want to ask for submission of cards on any items, that wishes to submit any cards on any items? We have one coming in now, another one. I don't keep the submission of cards open for the entire meeting, just at the beginning, or unless somebody else. No others on any other items? Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the submission of cards. Okay, thank you. All right, so item 6, we do have 2 cards. Michael Meyer?
And Mr. Chair, how much time would you like on the clock?
2 minutes, please.
Good morning. My name is Michael Meyer, and I'm president of the Outpost Homeowners Association, and we represent the 475 homes in the Hollywood Hills between Runyon Canyon Park and the Hollywood Bowl. Outpost Drive, which runs up our neighborhood, is the shortest and most direct route between downtown Hollywood and the Mulholland Drive and the Hollywood Bowl overlook. So we are inundated by tour buses. We also have a lot of movie stars living in our neighborhood. So they don't just drive up Outpost Drive. They stop in front of each house. And the ones that don't have earphones, that have loudspeakers, are obnoxious. And we get nothing but complaints about them as a homeowners association board. They disturb the peace of the neighborhood. Their traffic patterns are bad enough, but it's the loudspeakers, and they just make up stupid stories about who might live in which house, and it's all a bunch of BS. But anyway, we appreciate very much Councilman Rue and Councilman Bonin coming up with a creative way to hopefully create an incentive that will make them have earphones for some peace and quiet. So please support this.
What's the best story you've heard so far?
That Brad Pitt lives in my house.
Oh, see, you've been mistaken for Brad Pitt. It's not all that bad. All right. Cameroos? Did I get that correct? You'll correct me if I did not. I apologize if I got that incorrect.
Well,
Morning.
I wanted to speak about the same subject.
Yes, sir.
I represent Starline Tours of Hollywood, who is the largest tour company in Hollywood. And I would just like to say that I support the motion. I believe that it makes a lot of sense to make sure that the sound is kept to a minimum, and we try our best to do exactly that.
Thank you. All right, the final card, we have Nick from CD4.
Thank you, council members. Nick Greif, Policy Director for Councilmember David Rue. Wanted to thank all of you guys for being here, in particular Councilmember Englander for scheduling this item. I know you guys have a very busy agenda for the Public Safety Committee. And then, of course, to Councilmember O'Farrell, who is a partner with us on this, in that all of the tour buses tend to originate inside his district and then often migrate to other parts of CD13 and CD4. In addition, I want to thank the city attorney and the LAPD staff who've done a lot of work over the years to kind of figure out how do we regulate tour buses. It's a very tricky issue, in particular because almost all possible regulation is preempted by the California Vehicle Code, which actually does govern, along with the PUC, tour buses. What they have figured out is very clever, and something that San Francisco piloted is the ability to use one section of the California Vehicle Code, which basically says that you cannot hear a audible sound from a vehicle through amplified sound more than 50 feet away. So what San Francisco did a number of years ago has been very successful, is they require anyone who does not use headphones to come in to basically the city county up there and get permitted to verify that max volume, you cannot hear the vehicle from more than 50 feet away. It's the same thing we propose here. It's been done before. It's worked well. We think it'll work well here. What is nice about it is that for anyone that is using headphones, they don't have to come in at all. So it saves them the permit fee and the hassle. So the hope is that, and what we saw in San Francisco, most folks just opt to use headphones instead of going through the permit process. But if they do go through the permit process, that's our ability to regulate them. It, of course, is also would be cost recovery for the city in terms of how much the fee is. And so we hope that today we can move forward with that so we can work with the city attorney and with LAPD on the final ordinance, as well as looking at implementation to get this underway. So we thank you very much for your guys' attention and hope we'll move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Farrell, do you have anything?
Just a few questions. Is Mr. T. Fink, would you answer would it be you?
It would be him.
Or to LAPD? So first of all, let me say this is a great proposal. Los Angeles is, I have an opinion that LA is a very noisy city already, and we're growing in population, and any measure we can enact that is fair, balanced, and makes a lot of sense and is common sense, especially with regard to tour bus regulation, is really important. And sadly, a lot of those buses aren't even registered with the PUC. A lot of these are fly-by-night, and we know that that harms the tour bus industry. The ones who play by the rules, and the ones who don't sometimes aren't even registered appropriately. So I think this is a really great measure to support. Can you just talk about what the permitting would be like, the costs, the enforcement?
As to the permitting process, we have not identified yet what that process would be until we see a draft of an ordinance. But the way this typically would work, assuming that an ordinance would pass, that would require, if you were not going to have the headphones, sound could not emit more than 50 feet from the vehicle, et cetera. You would apply for a permit as a company. The company would go through the normal permitting process. I'm going to guess that permit would be between $200 to $300, the initial permit, and that would be required for the company. Then we would do an inspection of the vehicles to ensure that the sound does not emit further than that. We would then notify the various 21 police jurisdictions that this particular company has a permit. The sound cannot emit more than more than 50 feet from the vehicle. If it does, it's subject to citation under the California Vehicle Code. An alternative for the companies would be to have the headphones. Then they would not have any permitting costs, would not have any enforcement requirements at all. And my expectation is that the vast majority of companies will comply and go to the headphone system. We would, as part of this process, we would do an outreach to the companies, identify those permitted companies in the city, reach out to them, have some informational meetings with them, explain to them what the process will be, the benefits of going to the headphone, give a grace period for them to comply, and then we would begin enforcement if they did not comply. That's our traditional way of going about, and I think it works effectively.
So clearly it would strongly discourage tour bus companies from applying for a permit for sound.
Exactly. If they do the headphones, there's no need for a permit, and we issue as resolved.
And any sense on how it's worked out or challenges in San Francisco?
The information I have has been very successful. It has not been, there's been no resistance. It's been accepted by the tour bus industry. It's been accepted by the people taking advantage of the tour buses, and it's an easy way to comply with the external noise factors.
Terrific. I would strongly support this. Thank you.
I have no questions. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and approve that item. And I want to thank all those who came out to testify, particularly Brad Pitt. It was a busy day. Appreciate you coming out this morning. And we'll go ahead and move this on to the full city council and ask them to, and ask all of us there to ask the city attorney to draft the ordinance, which will then come back to this committee for review before going on to the council. Okay, it's approved. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and go on to item 12. I know a couple people walked in late. If you had cards, if you wanted to fill cards out to speak on any of the items, please do so as quickly as possible. We're going to ask Marcellera, is that right? Marcella? Yeah, I was reading the handwriting. I apologize.
And item number 12 is a motion from Council Members Englander and Wesson relative to the feasibility of utilizing drones to access significant incidents.
Okay, we're going to ask a few to come up at the same time. Have a seat, if you would. Jamie Garcia? No, you can come up. Please, please, please. Yeah, well, sorry. Try that again. We've got 4 chairs, so I'll bring 4 of you up at a time. Jamie Garcia, Hamid Khan.
Panel.
Hamid, sorry. And so I'll ask, for those of you who have not filled out cards, if you can just please print your names. This one's challenging. Okay. Eddie H. Yes. And there was one other card, and I apologize. So if you filled out a card, just come on up.
Does it say General Dogon?
That's what I think it is. That's a G?
Yeah.
Okay. It's artistic. All right. With that, in any order, please.
Good morning, everybody present here. We're happy to be here to represent a whole lot of community members throughout Los Angeles. My name is Mariela Saba. I'm a co-founder of the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And in 2014, we got word that the Seattle Police Department gifted 2 Dragonflyer X6 drones to the Los Angeles Police Department, of which the communities in Seattle had rejected, rightfully so, knowing that this would only further militarize our already militarized police state. So we got a word of that and made sure that we would make some noise here in Los Angeles. Since then, we collected over 3,000 signatures. As an educator, I went ahead and worked with a lot of youth to listen to what they felt about what drones would be like in the hands of LAPD. And there is strong opposition across the city for LAPD to have drones. This is
If I could hold our time for a minute, I just want to let you all know that this is actually on the agenda itself, is not scheduled for LAPD. It's for the fire department, for major incidents. So I want to make sure that you're addressing that particular issue.
For sure. I'm giving context to our reality and our knowledge of mission creep and knowledge of corruption throughout the city and tactics throughout the city to slip in drones from Seattle to LAPD. And then this motion that brings up the concern that through the fire department, this would be one way to get it into LAPD, because that's how mission creep works. That's how technology is slipped through one department to another, and that's exactly why I'm here to voice on behalf of hundreds, thousands of community members across Los Angeles who are already super over-policed. Our bodies are over-policed throughout the city, and adding drones is just another way that we will continue to be policed. So we're trying to put a stop to this motion, because we understand that this motion is a tactic. We understand that this motion is a way to slip drones to LAPD, and that's exactly why I'm here to oppose that, and I'm here with lots of other peers who are here to voice the same concerns and put you all on check and notice.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Jamie Garcia. I'm also with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So I think I just want to pick up and reiterate the concept of mission creep, and realizing that once one department gets use of a technology, that another department will pave its way into using that technology as well. And so that's one of the main reasons why we're here to speak out against the fire department using drones. Also, I think there's been many close calls and many disturbances with drones actually being getting in the way of how fire departments were actually approaching a fire. So I think we need to think about that as well. It was stated that 3,000 people had signed signatures against the use of drones by LAPD. So again, we need to put that into context. Has the community even been informed that these drones are being considered to be used by the fire department? And also, I'd like to know which drones these are, if the drones have been purchased and how they've been purchased, if they've actually been purchased through the Urban Area Security Initiative as well. Those things need to be discussed and disclosed to the community. Also, we had a lot of focus groups. There was one particular focus group with promotoras from LA County Hospital that actually questioned monies being used in this manner. So, And they felt that this money could also be used towards health services. Students actually saw the use of drones as being a way that they could be targeted as well. And so I think that the context that's being given is this something that's really going to help with firefighting, or is this just a way that we're trying to normalize the use of drones? We also released a report talking about the dangers of drones falling from the sky. This was in correlation to a Washington Post report that also came out. So I think that we need to think about the dangers of drones, not only not assisting in fires, but also making it more dangerous for community members as well, because there's been a lot of close calls. So I'd like that to be considered in this whole process.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, and we have shared with you a copy of the drone report that we had published in December of 2015. There's another document that we have shared with you that was released on a study that was done on the use of drones by the Customs and Border Patrol, and I think that what leads to my colleagues' comments about mission creep, because here's CBP, and 700 times in 3 years the Customs and Border Patrol had loaned their drones over to other agencies, law enforcement agencies and other agencies as well. So the issue of trust and the issue of the history runs very deep as well, and it's been outlined in this report. Then I think we also need to look at the issue of safety. I mean, we can send you a report which was detailed that literally 400 drones have fallen out of the sky, and these are U.S. military drones, which over a course of about 6 or 7 years just fell out of the sky and caused extensive damage to life and property. Then there's also the issue of the FAA also expressing its own concerns, and yes, they are speaking about the private use of drones, but I think the question really comes down to, as others have said, that it is a starting point, and that's where we want to stop even before it gets out of the gate, because it's not just about the invasion of privacy. It's not just about what drones symbolize as a highly militarized equipment, and yes, they have been mainstreamed and popularized and just normalized in our lives as well, but drones have a very significant place in people's imagination. And to the Police Commission, we had released, these are signatures, these are 3,000 signatures that we have gathered, and there are more people who are signing on these petitions as well, and yes, they are specifically pointed towards LAPD, but I think the sharing of technology, the mission creep that it leads to, and ultimately what's going to happen, we're going to end up living in a militarized zone. So we are strongly rejecting this thing, and we hope that you pay heed to this, because people have clearly spoken out and expressed their reservations and concerns about the use of drones and rejected them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Eddie H. of the Los Angeles Community Action Network. I think what's been intimated thus far is the real issue. And the issue that has been really clouded in this necessity to have drones for the LAPD Fire Department. We know that drones are dangerous, and I can just express to you now in real time, there was a mother who was walking her child in a stroller in Pasadena, and a drone fell from the sky. This mother will no longer be able to hold her child, to raise her child. We also understand that drones are used for data collection, and we are engaged in an effort now concerning data collection that will be shared with other departments, specifically the LAPD. We know this is not about the LAPD, but we also understand that the LAPD has their hands in everything that goes on in this city. As a matter of fact, they run this city. So when we're talking about mission creep, it is something that is very relevant, because we've seen firsthand the data sharing of interagencies. And we understand today that these drones are just a way to get into all the systems that are congruent to this city. But we also understand that from an aspect of dollars and cents, that those funds could be better spent in so many different areas. This city is in a homeless crisis, and those dollars could be utilized to do something concerning that. Another point is that we know that fires, they burn. We know that. A fire is a fire. And I was left just thinking, what could a drone do more so than the normal procedures? And just something simple, and one of my colleagues said earlier that
Thank you.
if
Please-
you have a drone flying over fire,
Can you
would it
please
be
wrap
able
it
to
up?
see through the smoke?
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all for coming this morning. Ask the fire department to,
Here, one more. General Dogan.
oh, yes, of course. Apologize. Come on up.
My name is General Dogon, human rights organizer with LA Can, and I am here to say no to LA Fire Department getting drones, because we know, we look at, in our community, we look at the fire department as being junior cops, because we see the working relationship that LAPD and LA the fire department got. And what you classify as public safety ain't the same public safety as us. Farrow, Busacano, England, and Bonnet, y'all the 4 white guys that's on city council members.
Excuse me, I'm Native American and white.
Well, we look
Okay.
at you as representing and working for a better white Los Angeles, not a better diverse Los Angeles. I don't care if you get mad at me and spin around, because it's the truth. Last week, you was voting to give Chief Beck 54% of the budget, right? You bent over backwards for him. Same thing you're doing for the fire department. Just like I say, what you consider as public safety ain't the same public safety to me. You ain't the one that's being shot at every 28 hours, right? And we see you as this public safety committee, this is your place, because this is what you want to do. You feel it's your sworn duty to represent white supremacy here. And I'm going to call it out, because that's what's been going on since y'all been having these meetings. And we don't want no damn drones. We don't want the fire department got them, nobody to have them. You seem like you just can't give them back. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. All right. We'll ask the fire department to come up. I'd like to acknowledge Councilwoman Martinez is here as well. Thank you. All righty. Good morning.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. So walk us through the use of drones and the fire department and how they could be helpful, where the parameters sort of lie, where you would use these and not use these, and what you are all thinking on this.
Well, let me start out, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. I'm Pete Benish. I'm the Air Operations Section Commander with the Fire Department. And certainly we're faced with 2 challenges initially when we talk about drones and their use for emergency and non-emergency purposes. First of all is ensuring that we're not violating the rights and the privacy rights of the citizens of Los Angeles. Ultimately, that is a decision that you folks will be looking at, and as we identify missions that these drones can perform for us, we need to obviously keep that in mind. And then the second challenge for us with the use of drones is blending the use of these aircraft, unmanned aircraft, with our manned aircraft. Certainly a challenge for any pilot. As I'm sure you've been reading in the newspaper about the near misses that have occurred with the use of drones. So these are 2 significant challenges that we, as we do this study and as we move forward and talk about the use of drones, will be faced with resolving. Our current policies right now for drones for the fire department are that we do not authorize the use of drones by any of our members. We are certainly looking at the use of drones and studying the feasibility and looking at studies that have been done nationwide, worldwide, on the use of drones, and that technology, of course, is ever advancing. CAL FIRE's current policy on the use of drones is that none of their members, none of their firefighters are authorized to use drones during emergencies. But times are changing, and there's significant technology out there that will assist us in mitigating emergencies as we move forward. I really think that the use of drones is only limited by what our imagination is. Wasn't, in fact, it still is one of our resources that we have. Our horse members, our members who are horse-mounted patrol that goes out usually in Griffith Park, and on our fire hazard day, high hazard days, is out there patrolling. As you know, our most valuable asset in mitigating a brush fire is a quick response with a lot of resources. The sooner we know about the fire, the quicker we can get on it and abate the emergency. I think, you know, when we look at right now, we're using horses, but that drone technology to patrol on these higher hazard days to ensure or to get firsthand awareness, to get a quick response would mitigate a fire quicker than if we were to wait for that 911 call. So again, it's only limited by what your imagination can be as far as the use of drones, patrol being one. Certainly at emergencies, when we get aerial recon of a fire, we'll talk about a wildfire. We have in Fire Scope what we call our night flying guidelines. Okay, when we send up an airship at night, the risk is a lot greater in a manned at nighttime than it is during the day. We have resources in our night vision goggles and things, but to be able to put up a drone at night to keep eyes on the fire with its thermal imaging and taking those images right back, much safer process for us. So those are some of the ways that drone technology is going to be helping us. There are drones out there that will help us that don't even have cameras that we're not looking at, but basically thermal imaging type of devices that we can use to keep an eye on the fire, the progress of the fire. The other thing that certainly where drones will come into play for us, and we actually use the technology now, is with our iPads and our GPS coordinates. We get hikers. We get hikers in Griffith Park. We get lost hikers and injured hikers in the Hollywood Hills, the Santa Monica Mountains. The technology that's available with smartphones is when somebody calls, we get their GPS coordinates. To be able to program a drone immediately with those GPS coordinates, go out and find that hiker in a matter of minutes is a total valuable resource in going out and saving a person that could be having a medical emergencies in the hills. So it's something that we're looking at. We use that technology now. I get in the helicopter, I enter the GPS coordinates, and we fly immediately to where the person is located. Where problems are is when the person isn't there. Now the use of those drones to go in and do that search would be a valuable tool. Certainly there's non-emergency uses for drones too, and it gets a little dicey here, but when we start talking about, we send inspectors out to do brush clearance. Certainly drones could come in there, be a valuable resource in helping us with our brush clearance. Current technology out there that's being used right now, there's a helicopter called a K-MAX. It has a 6,000-pound payload, and it's an unmanned aircraft. Obviously, there's a risk involved whenever we have manned aircraft dropping water. This K-MAX technology is being used up in Northern California right now on an experimental basis where a helicopter is dropping water over fires, flown from a trailer, and eliminating that human factor in the aircraft. There's another technology out there called EBs. In the backpacks that all these firefighters carry, there's a small little drone that, and again, they're not using these right now. This is in technology that's being developed. But while they're on the line, to be able to put a drone up to keep eyes on the fire to ensure that we don't have the catastrophes that we had when when firefighters get overrun by fire, to have these drones overhead and to keep eyes on would be obviously a technology advance. There's other obviously other uses. Hazardous materials, when we get plumes of vapor and things, to have the drone keep an eye on that. Evacuation purposes. Again, it's only limited by what your imagination can be. Certainly, we have to look at these challenges that were brought out this morning. Certainly, we have to look at using these aircraft versus manned versus unmanned aircraft. It's a challenge out there. Our policy right now, if we have a drone in our what we call our fire area, we land our aircraft. We don't fly with drones. It could be a catastrophic if a drone were to hit a helicopter. So our policy is to land. We call LAPD. They come in and assist us in locating who's operating the drone. Usually it's a hobbyist that's out there just trying to gather some footage. But we don't mix the two. So with those two challenges, we meet those challenges. I think the technology is going to be invaluable to us.
Thank you. Anything to add? I think that pretty much covered everything.
Well, I can speak. Thank you, Councilmember. Trevor Richmond. I'm the Assistant Bureau Commander of Operations, Valley Bureau. We have presently put together a work group to evaluate the feasibility of drones in the LAFD. They've prepared a draft document right now. We're reviewing that draft document, but I think it's going to include a lot of the and answer a lot of the questions you might have with regard to privacy and the application of drones in the fire service. So we look forward to being able to bring that to you in the near future.
Right.
No, sir, I have nothing to add. I'm in support of Chief Benish's comments.
Thank you. So a couple of things to add, and I've done a lot of work in this space. In fact, it was Councilmember Weston and I that pushed forward policies to make sure we can restrict drones from flying, particularly not only around airports, but some of the privacy concerns, but also putting out a public service announcement and a campaign about when they fly, we can't, in terms of first responders, particularly firefighter aircraft, and that a drone can actually bring down an entire aircraft. And we've had not only near misses, but some incidents where we couldn't fly at all during major brush fires because of drone activity. While this is limited to one's imagination, I want to shrink it down a little bit and not limit it to imagination, but actual firefighter and fire department purview, and that and particularly emergency response. In speaking with a lot of not only pilots but also firefighters on the ground and how this could be useful, some of them shared with me things you had mentioned, but also things like instead of getting eyes up on a building that might be a high-rise on fire, they can put up a drone and see quickly if there's any people inside that need to be rescued rather than sending firefighters up through a fire immediately. So building search in a fire, looking at the rooftops, and rather than just jumping on a roof, and we've had incidents where firefighters have fallen through roofs many times, looking at the structural integrity or perhaps at least getting eyes on a roof or a structure fire. So all kinds of uses in an emergency. I'd be reluctant at this point to support the idea of using it for brush clearance or other routine type of operations. I can see the benefit, but I think we need to tread lightly and go slowly, particularly given some of the concerns that folks have. I do see a very great use in the right parameters, in a controlled parameter of, really saving lives. And if you look at the opportunity to utilize technology for that purpose, and if it's structured, I think we move forward very carefully in looking at how we would do that. The benefits are tremendous. The opportunities are, in fact, limited to only your imagination. But I think it's up to us to limit it a little beyond imagination. And so in looking at that, I want to move this forward with those ideas and to come back working closely with also the city attorney and the city attorney's office, and also the report, and bringing that back as quickly as possible. What's the time frame on that?
I think we could have a report within 90 days.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'd like that to come back here as well to move forward and look at some of those parameters and, confine it to emergency situations instead of general operations. I'll leave that vague, but I think that says a lot, and open it up to my colleagues as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the scenario, Chief Benish, when you described the night flight guidelines, thermal imaging, GPS coordinates, et cetera, are there other departments around the country, gentlemen, that you're aware of that are using drones specifically for this purpose or being studied, or is there any data?
For right now, the purposes of drones have been mainly on wildfires. There have been some significant wildfires where drone technology has been used, not at low level, but at very high level. And these have been military drones that have come back with imagery that shows the progression and used for mapping of these fires. Low-level drone technology right now, based in an emergency situation, is not, to my knowledge, being regularly used. It's still in that feasibility study. Other departments are faced with the same challenges that we are, mixing with the manned aircraft and the privacy rights. So we're working through those. We will identify the emergency use of drones and work through those challenges.
And I agree that it should be applied for emergency use only. And having said that, would it be regulated through the FAA?
Well, anyone flying a drone at this point is regulated by the FAA.
Right, but would you also need to, or would you?
Absolutely.
Ask for
Absolutely. Those drone operators would have to meet the requirements of the FAA. They'd have to have a pilot's license in order to operate the drone. They'd have to meet those criteria, which are what the FAA identifies.
I think emergency use only study, but I'm not sure if I disagree with you a little bit, Mr. Chair, because I think that the study for especially nighttime wildfires where maybe a hiker may be unaccounted for, say in Griffith Park, I wouldn't want to exclude that as an option to evaluate before it comes back to committee. But I also fully agree and understand the concern about a high-rise fire or other structure fires that where a drone could possibly be used to identify individuals, both potential victims and then, of course, the firefighters in terms of the condition of the structure to prevent roof cave-ins and such. So I would love to see both at least evaluated because we do have the occasional nighttime incident in some of our wild areas.
Let me clarify. Let me just clarify for a moment. What I'm referring to is routine work, not emergency work.
Right. Okay. So if it's limited to emergency, which I
want to limit. I'd like the report to only focus on emergency.
Right.
Response.
Whether it's in a wildlife area or
emergency response, not routine. And so routine being they do checks for film permitting, they do checks for school construction, the fire department does all types of routine. They do checks for, and there's a long laundry list, above ground storage, brush clearance. I would stay away from all types of routine work, just to fly a drone as they choose, whenever they want, for any kind of routine, and limit it only for this report. And if at some point in the future we ever have that conversation, I want to bifurcate that and look at only emergency response situations, and to focus on, the report should focus on what kinds of emergency response situations, who has the authority to deploy that technology on the scene. Is it any firefighter? Is it an EMT? Is it a supervisor? Is it so? To delineate and spell out exactly what types of emergency situations, who would deploy it, how it's cataloged, and so I think that's what I'm suggesting. I saw a scene the other day, as an example, where there was a hiker, a woman on the side of a hill. It was just, I think, 48 hours ago, and it was a hiker up in, I think, the Hollywood Hills, and it was amazing if you saw the footage of this. And it took some time for firefighters to get on scene and deploy the ropes and get down to her. If you can imagine in a second flying up a drone to her specifically and actually having a conversation. How are you feeling? Are you hypothermic? Do you need, actually can even deliver, perhaps like a water bottle. I mean, you think about the opportunities in an emergency situation like that where you can actually save a life and have a conversation while you're rappelling down the side of a mountain or getting to perhaps a vehicle that's gone over a cliff quickly to analyze exactly the situation so much faster. But limit, again, to emergency situations.
If use of drones in a regulated scenario can save lives potentially, then this absolutely should be explored. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and just if I can make one comment on the technology piece of it and the imagination, I think there's technology that we can use immediately and that the report will address. And then I think as included in the report would be future technology that is being studied right now. There's a company that's making goggles for firefighters to wear that tie into a drone. As he goes into a structure, the drone goes ahead of him, he sees through the smoke, and it's used to locate people inside of a home. That's the future of this technology.
Oh, I agree. And again, emergency situations.
Correct.
Right?
It's not just limited to
right.
outside over a wildfire, but it's just this technology of being able to go into a structure that's filled with smoke that a firefighter can't see and have this image put in his eyes so he knows right where to go to make that rescue. It's coming. It is coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on cost savings. Is this feasibility study going to look at a side-by-side analysis between using a helicopter versus a drone?
I think that would definitely be included in the report, and there's definitely a cost savings when we talk about patrolling.
Right on. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the presentation. Sorry I missed the beginning of it. This is just asking for a report back, so I'm okay with that. It's hard not to imagine all the potential great uses for the technology. Very, very easy. But having reread 1984 last year, it's also hard not to imagine the bad applications for the technology. So I'm very wary of stuff, and I appreciate that the chair's instruction to narrow this to emergency situations. I don't trust subsequent generations of government to keep it that way, though. What I'd like to see, if you could look into this, into your report back, is whether or not we could have a provision that there is public disclosure of any time we use the drones for emergency technology. It doesn't need to be while we're doing it, obviously, because you're busy. But if a few days later it can be disclosed that we use drone technology here, and that may build support for using it because people will understand the applications. But I think it also gives some level of assurance about the scope.
Good point.
Great. I think those are all the questions we have. So we'll go ahead and, with those guiding principles, if you will, if you can come back with those reports, keeping those things in mind, limiting to emergency situations, the idea of how we would catalog and share that publicly with when we're deploying, and come back with all the recommendations, and then we can have actually the discussion. This is just moving forward to bring back a discussion. I think it's a great thing, quite frankly. If you limit it in scope and you talk about the opportunity to save lives utilizing technology, both firefighters, potential victims, and those possibilities are tremendous. And And so I welcome this discussion, and I appreciate all the work that you have all put into this and the department has put into this as well. So thank you. So we'll go ahead and support that with those guidelines to come back here.
Okay.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much.
And,
90 days or sooner. Right.
and Mr. Chair, we will be holding that in committee for 90 days. Not moving
There's
it forward.
no need to move this on to council if we're going to come back here. So we'll go ahead and hold it here if 90 days or sooner. I understand the report might be done a little sooner, so, okay.
And Mr. Chair, would you like to reconsider item number 6 now that the members?
Yes, please. And so, so item 6, reconsidered, we'll go ahead and move item 6. And we don't have any cards for general public comment. Let's go ahead and open up for general public comment. No cards? Okay, we'll go ahead and close general public comment. And then with that, let's go ahead and take item 1.
Item number 1 is the communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Aram Sahakian as the permanent general manager of the Emergency Management Department.
How are you?
Good, Mr. Chair, council members.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is one of those departments and general managers and functions that it's the last person you ever want calling you in the middle of the night, but it's the one that you definitely want on call 24 hours a day, and big shoes to fill. Walk us through some of your, if you will, background, ideas. What are the top issues you think we're facing that you'd like to take on or spearhead, and just give us some of those overall ideas.
Absolutely. Good morning again. Work for the city, 27 years, started with the Department of Transportation and was moved up by the mayor. From DOT, I started managing district offices and moved into managing major special events. Some of the major events I've headed are the 405 freeway closure, the space shuttle move. We're moving the tank on the 21st, and Salida Reynolds asked me to finish that project, which I will. And in the process, I've worked across city agency lines. I was able to create a collaborative environment with all the general managers because we can't do it alone. And I will be utilizing that same approach in the emergency management department. The EMD has 8 emergency management coordinators only, but the city family collectively, from Bureau of Street Services to Public Works to the other civilian agencies, we have over 27 emergency management coordinators. So I will be coming back to you, and with your support, I want to collectively form a team and triple our workforce to go to the neighborhoods throughout the council districts to activate and integrate the communities into the preparedness process. And the reason for that is simple. We not only cannot do it alone, but it's key to success. It's as simple as that. If our communities, neighborhoods, residents, the business district, they are not resilient, they are not self-sustaining, it is not going to happen. We'll be fooling ourselves to believe that we can get to every person in the city throughout the council district within 72 hours. It's just not going to happen. Thousands of events, approximately 2,500 events on annually that I've managed. Incident commander at many levels on these events, and that's where I very closely cultivated my relationships, not only with the police and fire agencies, but also with the harbor, with LAX, post 9/11. I was involved in shutting down the horseshoe, we called it, and prepare a plan, a mobility plan to transport passengers back and forth to the terminals. So quite a bit of experience in emergency response, emergency preparedness. Now, as far as priorities, I have 5, and I had to write them down because I have more than 5, but I had to prioritize them. But number 1 is to increase our resource pool. And I say that because grant funding is dwindling. The farther we go away from 9/11, the money the amount is going down, and it's extremely challenging. to get some of these grants, and there's competition is fierce. In order to do that, we definitely need to position ourselves as the number one city in the nation, and we are, honestly. I mean, the economic rebounds, we lead it. Emergency, we lead it. So we are an example. So once we do that, I think, and we show that the money is well spent, and people look at us, and we're a good example, the money will come. Aside from funding resources, I briefly discussed the personnel resources, and I do have some other ideas, including bringing in the veterans organizations, the disaster worker veterans who are experts in this field, and involve them in the process. We need to leverage technology, definitely, to better communicate and prepare our neighborhoods at the ground level. And I keep saying at the ground level because that's where it starts. I want to activate and integrate again your communities at every corner of the city into the process. We need to recognize our challenges that are very unique, and they are unique. And we need to prepare solutions that seriously consider mobility, homelessness, and diversity throughout the city. Those are my priorities. I strongly believe that you need to love what you do, and you need to do what you love, and success is driven by passion, and this is my passion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Sahakian, when your promotion was announced, I felt dismay only because you're such a clutch player in the Department of Transportation. Through years of working with you, I've seen you in action, and your incredible abilities that, in my view, are irreplaceable with the department. The flip side of that is that you're the perfect choice to be general manager of the Emergency Management Department because of your vast knowledge of our transportation system and your vast knowledge of the city bureaucracy and really just how to make things happen and get things done. I think you're the perfect promotion for this. And as you know, you want to increase the numbers in the department. It's going to be tough. You'll have a lot of support for that, but it's going to be hard. So one thing that I was going to suggest, and I think we touched upon this when you and I met in person, and that is Los Angeles has a vast volunteer corps in our neighborhoods through the certification system. We just recently certified dozens and dozens of CERT volunteers in Silver Lake, for example. And you mentioned already sort of exploring how to grow the volunteer corps in our neighborhoods. So I think there's an untapped or largely untapped resource that perhaps previous GMs haven't maybe focused on as much as I feel that you will, and I think that'll really help with the mission of your department. So I'm just going to say that, but I can't say enough good things about your abilities, and I think it bodes really well for the Emergency Management Department with you at the helm. So thank you, and I wholeheartedly support this. Even though I'm somewhat dismayed, I'm also more thrilled with your appointment than anything.
Thank you, Councilman, and I can tell you that your public safety deputies better get ready for hard work.
Okay, all right. A challenge has been thrown down, and we will work to meet it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. Mr. Sahakian, I had an opportunity to work with you when I was assigned Emergency Services Division. Together, we worked on numerous marathons and the NBA All-Stars, DNC when it was here in Los Angeles, and I truly had an opportunity to see you at work. And to know that you're before us in this position is just so fitting. It's so fitting. If you look at your experiences, I mean, I was just going down a list of what you've accomplished and under your direction, emergency response activities, implementing the National Incident Management System, Standardized Emergency Management System, been the director of the city's Emergency Operations Center, created the Operations Center itself. You were in charge of the Metro Rail Construction and Automated Traffic Surveillance and Control Center. Well-respected, beloved. You were fair, consistent on the way you have led the city and transportation and the number of assignments that you have led. Organized, you know how to multitask, and that's exactly what we're looking for in the director of the Emergency Management Department. You have the skill set and the passion to serve the city. I'm just really excited about this opportunity for you to be elevated in this position. So you have my support, and I want to thank the mayor for putting you in this position to lead our city as it relates to emergency management. Anyone else?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron, congratulations on the nomination. I'll echo what Mr. O'Farrell and Mr. Buscaino said about the work you've done in our districts. You've been phenomenal in helping us deal with some of the impacts of some of the major marathons or half marathons, triathlons, all the kind of stuff that comes through my district and the impacts it's had. I know you even had folks come in before their shifts one day and try to notify folks about the parking restrictions because they might not have been otherwise aware of them. So thank you for all that. I've got a couple questions for you, though.
Of course.
One of the things that constantly bothers me is the risk of another incident at Los Angeles International Airport. In November 1st of 2013, the incident showed some wonderful things about our response and some gaping holes, I think. It showed that the law enforcement response, particularly the Laua PD that responded, was phenomenal. And they had actually just been trained for that kind of incident just a week or two before, which was fantastic. But what was glaring to me was how poor sort of the civilian department response was. That day, the mayor and Gina Marie Lindsay and I were walking around, and people were just sort of wandering around the airport with their luggage, no idea what to do or where to go. We were telling them go to the nearby hotels, but none of them knew where the nearby hotels were. They were from out of town, and nobody had notified the hotels that they were coming. There were problems getting the buses in and out of the airport. And I know the airport is its own entity, its own city, and I continue to work with the airport on those issues, but what role can you play to make sure that we continue to work on fixing that problem and that we have more of a, what they would say in Tel Aviv, a whole of community approach to responding to an incident at the airport?
Absolutely, and that's also one of my concerns, Councilman. And my first phone call, well, my second phone call was to Chief Gannon. The first one was down to the port. You're absolutely right, and there is a panic factor right immediately after an incident, and there's chaos. And here, my expertise, my DOT, I'm going to put my DOT hat because information sharing is key. And if you recall, the public outreach on the 405 project and some of the other projects is what made it happen. So I want to use technology here. I want to use changeable message signs. I want to use clear guidance to the public because when there's chaos, having people screaming and yelling in bullhorns and directing people is not going to work. It would assist the situation, but it's not going to work. We need high-level signage. We need technology. We need a social media component that immediately gives the word out to the public and in different languages. Again, the diversity comes into the picture here. And have pre-identified refuge sites and not at the moment decide where we're going to do the evacuation. So contingency planning is going to be key. And I will be working with Chief Gannon to make sure that this is integrated into the construction projects that are underway at this time.
Yeah, because it's going to get a lot more complex with the LAMP projects and everything going on at the airport. The one thing I'd ask you to try to put some energy into is the idea of a whole of community approach, which is that it's not just the first responders who are engaged, but we have thousands of people who work at that airport. Some of them work for the airport, some of them work for the airlines, some of them work, at the Starbucks. Everybody could have a role to play. And if there's training that everybody has and they know where to be looking for information so that in the case of an incident, they can help with crowd control or first aid or whatever we need to do. That
Absolutely, and we need to create that relationship right now. Just like the city, we used not to talk to each other. And now we're at a point that we are integrated. And that needs to happen within the LAWA.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments, then this is unanimous, and I believe, and we'll go ahead and move your appointment over to the full City Council. When is that scheduled?
That is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Mr. Chair.
We'll see you tomorrow. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Next item, please. In your item, I'm sorry, was it 11? Yeah, let's go ahead and take item 11.
Item number 11 is a motion from Council Members Martinez and Krikorian relative to reporting on fires that have occurred at metal recycling and auto wrecking facilities in Sun Valley and Pacoima over the last 5 years.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't want to use the word spark. What prompted this motion was a fire that...
That was a Mitch comment.
Yeah, that's really? Almost, I'm sounding like Mitch, that's scary. Okay, let's move on. So what prompted me to introduce this motion, colleagues, was a fire that broke out on April 17th at a auto wrecking facility in Sun Valley. And since I've been in office, I recall there being more than one of these types of fires, and some of these auto wrecking facilities or metal recycling facilities that are often found in Sun Valley and Pacoima. And since I grew up in this area, I can tell you there's been several of these types of fires. What concerns me is that these wrecking facilities are filled with hazardous materials, and you have entire neighborhoods across the street, across the street from some of these facilities. So our residents are being exposed to toxic fumes along with any firefighter that responds to the fire and workers who happen to be there. So I just wanted to get a sense from the department. I know you don't have data just yet and you are working on the report, but the number of fires, any code violations that we can flag, what are some of the safety issues that are present at some of these facilities, and most importantly, what do you face when you have to attend to one of these fires? The last one on the 17th was so big that it took you a while to actually get onto the scene, because a lot of times some of these cars are not, they don't dispose of the liquids and the gases that are often found in cars. So when they're exposed to high temperatures, they act like mini bombs and you hear loud explosions. So I just wanted to get a sense as to the department, what do you face with when you have to respond to some of these fires?
Thank you, Council Member. Good morning. Trevor Richmond. I'm the Assistant Bureau Commander of Operations, Valley Bureau. I would first like to thank you and the committee for bringing this motion forward. And the LAFD shares your concerns and appreciates the questions that you had regarding these types of facilities, and your subsequent concerns over the products of combustion that these fires often generate. Particular to these fires, one of the problems that we typically have is the density of the fire load. So when you talk about cars in this specific incident on April 17th, and they're stacked very tightly together, it's very difficult for us to get to the seat of the fire, so to speak. So we typically have to take the heat out of the fire so that we can get close enough to bring heavy equipment in to start strategically pulling the cars apart so that we can get to the fire. That's why they often burn as long as this one did. The products of combustion are a concern. Your assessment is spot on. The residual oils, the gasoline, the tires, the upholstery in the car, those all have hazardous products of combustion. We try very carefully to monitor the downwind application of that plume of smoke, and if we feel it's necessary, we would consider evacuating homes if the smoke were to lay into those neighborhoods. But concerning the other questions you had regarding regulation, we're in the process of doing that research, really taking a deep dive into the historical context of these types of incidents and the regulation of these types of facilities, and the hazardous materials that are often associated with these facilities. So we would respectfully request some time to bring those details back to this committee.
Yeah. And I have a spreadsheet, and it's not detailed and certainly doesn't include all of these types of facilities. Some of these fires go back to 2003, as far as I can tell. And some of these facilities have had repeated incidences or fires that you've had to respond to. So we need to just take a look at what kind of code changes we need to make to reduce the number of fires and also to reduce the amount of toxic materials that so often our folks are exposed to. So I want to thank you for being here this morning. Mr. Chair, I just want to add, I would like to amend the motion to instruct the Department of Building and Safety to work with the fire department on this report as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. We'll go
I
ahead.
have a question real quick on this,
Oh,
if I can.
one more.
Really quick, if I may. Thank you, Nuri, for putting this motion forward. We, too, in the Harbor area have had a number of these incidents over the course of the last several years. What is the relationship between the fire department and the Department of Building Safety ensure that these inspections are made at these sites?
Current relationship between the Department of Building, Chief Warden, Fire Prevention Bureau, Fire Marshal staff. The current relationship is very good, and we would need to reach out to Building and Safety and post a meeting with them to be able to look into.
Yeah, I would encourage that, especially getting inspectors out there to make sure that we're holding these property owners and these businesses accountable, so that we can do everything we can to prevent these types of incidents occurring throughout the city. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So that is approved. And all the balance of the items, I believe we're going to go ahead and just move on consent.
And those are items number 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
All right. So those are moved on consent. And that concludes, I believe, the agenda. We are adjourned. Great. Thank you.